Hey guys, welcome back to the Detour, a special episode as we wrap the 2021 Tour of Spain. I'm your host Dan Jones, joined as always four-time national road champion Johnny Trevorrow, the voice of cycling Phil Liggett, and cycling podcast royalty. You would have heard this guy's name, of course, from EF, Mitch Docker. Thanks for joining us, Mitch. I'll start with you, mate. How are you traveling? Because I didn't know that you were injured, but mate, you've busted your arm.
I have. It looks worse than it is. A big cast on here, but I've actually only fractured a small bone, the top of the radius near the elbow. Apparently, I'm sounding like a doctor now, but it was one of those crashes that sort of you normally would just jump up and keep going, and the small crashes seem to do the worst damage. The big, exciting crashes, all you do is lose a whole heap of skin. You never end up breaking any bones. But my crash was one of those ones that just sort of everyone jumped on top of each other, and I came up with a broken elbow. But I'm back on the trainer. I'm doing a Matt Heyman. I call it the Matt Heyman 2.0. And I've upgraded the step ladder to a bookshelf. And I'm back on the trainer with an eye still to go for Roubaix in about just under 4 weeks now. So there's time. There's plenty of time. And as we know...
we know that. Exactly right. Yeah. Heyman did it. But you're putting pressure on yourself, mate, because we know what he did.
I'm looking forward to it's sometimes you just need to get on the trainer and do the hard work. And you wouldn't do it unless you were forced. So now I'm forced to do it. Everything happens for a reason.
Well, I was going to say, when Dan told me that you were going to be on and that you had a crash and you hurt yourself, I then Googled Mitch Docker crash, and quite a few came up, but not that one.
I know.
Well, I was going to say, like Matt Heyman, if you get to the start line, I mean, you're going to have that mindset of nothing to lose. That was key for Heyman that year with his results, because he was obviously a guy that used to stress a lot about that race. Do you think you'll be in the similar sort of mindset if it all works out?
I think there's a few things on play there. I think everyone's aware that's going to be my last race of my career. To be able to do Roubaix as the last race of my career, and all of a sudden now it's a question mark whether I'll even get to do that. And it's a bit of a sad thing, but now I've got something really to work towards. And as I've said this before, even before this crash, having Roubaix hanging over my head was a nice carrot for me to push 100% to the end of my career. And I think, I don't know this for sure, but if you just have some other races you've got no connection to, there is a tendency to sort of switch off halfway through the year and coast through. But that hasn't been the case, especially now with this broken arm. Now I'm back to square one doing double sessions on the ergo right till the last day of my career. So you can't say I didn't sort of squeeze the juice out of the lemon on this one.
Well, surely they'll give you a spot given the circumstances. I mean, they'd have to leave a spot open for you, given you're such a popular character and how big that race is for yourself.
Well, I wish it was that simple, but I got the student talking to from Charlie Wigelius the other day, and he said, "Look, mate, you're not guaranteed. You're going to have to prove it to us." I'm actually doing a race 3 days before called the Lille Metropole Tour, which used to be the old Franco-Belge. It's just a one-day race now. And he said, "That's your selection race, so show us." So he's kept the pressure on me. Good on him.
Yeah, well, no free rides, I suppose. But anyway, fellas, we want to recap the Tour of Spain, and we'll start. We'll obviously get to Jack Haig, but Magnus Cort has been a massive talking point, and if he was so close to winning the bloody time trial, it was phenomenal. And he got obviously most combative. He's won 3 stages of that race. I mean, what sort of form's this guy in?
Well, if you're asking me, we'll go to Mitch in a minute. I mean, we've spoken to him briefly, and he's just such a wonderful guy. But his form has been amazing. Like, he won 3 stages, almost won the prologue. The final time trial. But he almost won 2 other stages as well. He is the form rider. And as when we were talking to Yenzi on the bus, I said, tell him he's going to win the Worlds. I reckon he's the favourite for the Worlds. And after yesterday, he might win the Worlds and the time trial.
But Mitch, obviously Maggie's such a big character, but it seems like the culture in EF was so relaxed. It brought back memories of sort of Green Edge 2014, 2015 in those days.
It's a weird thing, and that's true. I agree with you. It's slightly different to those days. I feel like it was a bit more. The culture is very similar, but in terms of being that relaxed atmosphere, it's very similar, and especially in the Vuelta. There's a very special director sportive there, Juan Margarate. He gets it. He gets what it is needed to have good performances, and he applies the pressure when necessary, and he eases the pressure also when he thinks it's time to ease it. He's really special. I'm probably one of my favorite directors, if not my favorite director out there. But also, what I think really helped there was no GC. Hugh Carthy stopped the race early on, and then that sort of takes the pressure off and also allows everyone to start stage hunting. Sometimes they can work against a team, but also sometimes they can really work for a team, where guys normally would be pulling on the front, doing a really good job. Suddenly they get to the end of the race, and the GC guy might only end up finishing, top 10. And I don't mean that lightly, but the work put into it is there to do a podium or better. And you get a top 10, you've got no stage wins, top 10 at the end of the day. No one's really remembering that. Instead of when that GC guy is removed, suddenly you've got these strong guys that are able to flourish. And Magnus coming out of the Tour de France, we could see he was coming on some really good form. I saw him a couple of days before he left for the Vuelta over at the service course here, and he just looked lean, fit, ready to go. Not that I could predict what was going to happen, but I just knew he's just a strong guy anyway, that he was going to have a great tour.
Amazing.
Yeah. Iffy?
Well, when you sort of look at all the rides of the race, of course, Roglic it gets it because it was just a brilliant ride, and we were all, and the guys like Storer, stepped up, win 2 stages, and take the polka dot. But Magnus, to me, was the standout rider of the bike race. Roglic was a red hot favourite and did everything we expected, and even a bit more. But Maggie was just amazing.
What's the atmosphere like on the team generally, Mitch? Because it seems a very well-gelled team. They seem to get on really well, these guys. They race for each other.
They do, yeah. I think it's got a lot to do, I think, with that that freedom, that sort of, how can I say that? You're allowed to be your own person. It's promoted, if that makes sense. And that might sound funny to everyone out there listening. Like, what do you mean you can just be your own person? Sometimes in different outfits, different teams, they've got a goal, an objective. It could be the culture of the country that the team's from. And for whatever reason, you feel like you have to sort of morph into this person that this team wants you to be. And I especially felt that when I was in Green Edge. Obviously, I could just be myself, be an Australian. They understood my culture. And then coming away from that team, coming into EF, I wasn't sure what was going to happen. And again, it was promoted, like, just be yourself, do the podcast, wear flamboyant clothes, whatever that is that you do, be that person. And weirdly, that makes you feel very relaxed. Not weirdly, but I mean, it makes you feel very relaxed. But what I meant to say is weirdly, that propels then to the results, because everyone feels that relaxed atmosphere. They can be themselves. And the difference is with teams is that you're able then to switch it on when you need to race and switch it off when you need to relax. That's what I think EF has been able to do very, very well, because it's a fine line. You can be that joking, fun team, but if you're not getting the results, everyone just sort of is laughing at you as well. But if you can be that team that's really enjoying themselves, but when it's time to switch it on and get the results, that's the winning formula, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly right.
Sure.
Exactly right. Yeah, and you've shown it too in that. Look, some of the stage wins of Magnus were really directly attributed to great teamwork. Jens, that lead out of Jens Kukelia when he went past the Greenwich boys was just amazing. And the ride of Lawson Craddock the other day, when he just buried himself, he just delivered the race for Magnus. So very much a team effort in some of those wins.
It is, and then the Magnus and Jens go back to Green Edge, and they were great pals there. And you could see that the excitement of Jens after that win, and that combination is such a lethal combination at the end of such a stage. It was a tough stage. It was going to be a sprint, but there wasn't a huge bunch there. Jens can climb very well. Magnus can climb very well. Maybe a lot of people don't know that is both Jens and Magnus have a very, very long sprint. When Jens took off, I just knew it was done and dusted then, because once Jens got that gap, he can sprint for such a long time. Then Magnus goes, he's got this deceptively long, powerful sprint. I've done some sprints in his wheel, and I say only in his wheel because once you try and come around him, he just keeps kicking. So it was beautiful to watch, knowing that inside knowledge. Once they took off, I was like, oh, this is done. There's just no way anyone's getting around them now. So it was beautiful to see that and that friendship there. And like I said, I can imagine what the atmosphere is like on the team, because from the top, you've got, Juan Margarate there, who he breeds that. You just feel this, I don't want to use this word too lightly, this family feel. On the Vuelta, every year I've been there, he creates that from day one. No matter what happens, you're able to overcome that. A couple of years ago, we lost, 3 guys on one day, TJ, Hugh, and Rigo, and we were able to overcome that and still have a very successful tour. So I can imagine what's happened there this year. They lost Hugh early. They refocused, recalculated, and went, let's go for it. And they've really, really turned it around.
Hey, Mitch, how much of a difference does it make when you've actually got a guy that you get along with as well to ride for? Like, Maggie is such a character. I mean, how much does that play into it?
Massively. I think, everyone says, oh, I gave 100% for my teammate. And then there's that 110. I think that's an Aussie saying. What is 110%? But it's that there's giving it for someone and no one can question that. And then there's that little bit extra. And you say, like with Jens in that lead out for that sprint, he could have probably got him to, 200 to go, but he decided to go to 180, that little 20 meters more to just really give it for your teammate to make sure it's going to happen. And everyone knows that when you're doing something for a really good mate or, even family or something like that, it's just that little extra bit. And there's that, once it happens, there's that joy, and there's no question about it, about the teamwork. I think that's another thing too. When someone's working for you, and you just question, for instance, maybe did he give you his all for me? I don't know. But when it's that relationship that it's a really good mate or it's a good working relationship, there's no question. If he was done, he was done. If he got you to 180 meters to go, if he got you to 400 meters to go, you knew he gave 100% and there was no question asked. So that's a really nice thing, especially also when you're doing the lead out for your sprinter, that that you're going to give 100% because that your sprinter is going to respect that and give 100% as well. It's a nice feeling on both sides.
Yeah. I love the way while we're talking about that stage, when just before he went, he leaned back and he sort of patted his bum to let Maggie know we're about to go early. We're going early.
He's going, yeah.
It was great.
Hey, knowing what the culture's like within EF, obviously Esteban Chavez is a big signing. How do you think he's going to gel with the structure next year and beyond?
I think really well. A good little Colombian crew there as well. I mean, apart from that, Esteban fits in very well with the Mitchelton, the Bike Exchange team now, the Australian. He's really adapted himself. He's like an Aussie anyway. So it's not that he needed a Colombian crew there because he was going to adapt into any team, I think. But I think that will help him as well to feel a little bit like, for instance, myself, started 3 years in a Dutch team, then going to an Australian team. I didn't think anything of it until I was there going, oh, this is really, really nice to be around my own countrymen. So I think he'll enjoy that fact. And also, it's not a massive change in terms of atmosphere. Like we spoke about earlier, is that the two teams are pretty similar in terms of being able to be yourself and relaxed. And, once it comes time to work, he'll understand that switch as well. I think if you've come from a European style team and you come into EF, you often notice, what I've noticed is some guys don't necessarily like that. The French guys or the Italian guys, they come in, they don't like the unrigid format of the team. It takes them getting used to. A guy like Pierre Roland, I remember when I was only there in his second year, but I spoke to him about it. I was like, how'd you find it? He said, in the beginning, I didn't really enjoy it, but I will learn how this team worked, and now I absolutely love it. And he found it difficult to go back to the French style of team. So with Esteban, I think he's already worked that out in Bike Exchange. So the transition's not going to be as shocking for him, but the fresh change, I think, will revive his career. I think change is really good for anyone in their career. Yeah. And it's going to be great for him to just go to a new place and just do his old thing in a new environment.
We've got a few live comments coming in. Obviously, Wendy super fans always first to cab off the rank. Best of luck, Mitch. Zippy says, good to see you still cultivating your mullet, Mitch. Are you happy with the mullet at the moment? You still going to keep it going?
Yeah. I did say I was going to get rid of it for next year. Once it's it, I'm going to go a new look. Want to retire? You won't even recognise me walking down the street. But shaved it off a couple of weeks ago, and the kids and the wife weren't too happy. They said, "You look a bit strange without that, Mo." So maybe I'm doomed to have the bogan look forever.
It's fine, mate.
What are you going to do, Mitch? Oh, carry on.
Oh, you're right. No, just quick one. Matt Crap says, "Go hard, Mitch. There's no question, mate. You first picked and first into the velodrome." Samantha says, "Love your attitude, Mitch. All the best for Paris-Roubaix." Tom Maloney says, "So great to see you, Mitch. You've been on a long journey since I caught you climbing over a neighbourhood 3-metre fence." Big Billy says, "Good size lemons on Docker." Yeah, so there's a bit of a sample of the live questions. What were you going to say, Phil?
No, just wondering, what are you going to do, Mitch? Is it a secret, or have you got plans? Or
I am moving back to Australia, where we want to settle back in Australia. That was a big decision to retire. Is that I'd sort of come to the end of my tether over in Europe, and really wanting to get back to Oz. You guys are probably thinking I'm crazy now because you're back in lockdown, but I want to get back and just sort of be around the family. And I've got 2 young kids growing up, so I'd love that sort of. I'm looking forward to that family aspect, but.
sure.
In terms of working out what I want to do as a job, I'm not 100% sure yet. I've just got involved in the EF Coaching, which is a new business that's launched off the side of the EF Pro Cycling team, and they're getting some professionals involved with that as along as some existing coaches. And I'm just sort of dipping my toe in that and seeing how that is. I'm starting to understand that it takes a lot of time and it's hard work. So starting to understand why my coach had so much work dealing with me over all these years. And I'm just actually going to take the opportunity to settle back into Australia and give myself a chance to see what Mitch Docker is as a non-pro cyclist, what that might be like too.
Yeah,
it'll be different.
Best of luck,
Will
mate.
be different. I'll get you a job at the bakeries, mate.
That's a good idea. Stay away from JT, whatever you do, Mitch.
Always have to get a Bakeritz reference in there, Johnny. I've been trying to get on to Neil Stevens and Jack Hay. They're obviously in transit after the Vuelta. And I think we had you on last year, Mitch, on the last day of the Vuelta, and you're on the train. So that morning after the Grand Tour is tricky because all you want to do is just get home. But he did say he knew that Adam would go out hard when they were down by over 30 seconds in the first 10 kilometres. I told Jack, yeah, all good. We're 10 seconds down, but all under control, mate. He's like done the eek emoji where he's like, obviously he's trying to spin it like, yeah, but he would have been stressing. But as he said, if he predicted everything he said about the time trial came
Worked
true.
out. It did. That's absolutely right.
exactly that. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, we spoke to Neil just before the start of the time trial yesterday, Mitch, and he said we were worrying about that minute, how he would go. And he said, look, Adam's going to take a bit of time out in the first half, but then Jack will take it back. And he did. It's exactly how it happened. So there you go.
Yeah.
Another thing, Mitch, is obviously taking the GC out of it. You said, it does release a lot of stress, but when you are involved in a GC campaign, you look at guys like Esteban and the real smart ones, how important it is to form that bond with your other teammates and to motivate them. And I still remember when Esteban was going for GC back at the Giro, I think it was in 2016, when he drew like little pictures for everyone on the team and handed those out, like little things that you pick up on. Like, how crucial is that, particularly being a GC rider?
Oh, I think, yeah, as a leader in general, as whether you're a sprinter or a GC guy, especially because it's on and on day after day. It's the little things, it's a guy holding you out in the wind. It's a guy getting you those extra bottles. It's all the little things that add up, and it can go unthanked. And it's very difficult to thank everything that someone's doing for you. So to create that bond, like we spoke about, it's about getting 100% out of each of your teammates, and maybe that is just doing a little extra gesture along the way. It doesn't necessarily mean like you got to buy them a Rolex watch, but just something personal that you put some thought into. It could be a comment, it could be like you said, getting these little pictures done, or Esteban. I remember when he wore the red jersey his first time in the Vuelta. He collected all the red jerseys he got, and he signed. He didn't win the Vuelta. He only had it. He had it for 5 or 6 days, and he gave one of those to each of his teammates just to show thanks a lot for all the work they did over those days and how much it meant to him. He didn't have a whole lot of red jerseys, and he gave all them away to us teammates. And that went a long way for me. From that moment on, it just created this different bond between me and him and me and some other GC guy that I may have worked for over the years. And that's not to say you're not going to do your job, but it's just slightly different. And it just goes a long way, you know, and even if you're against them later on in your career and as a teammate, the peloton is so small. And I try and say this to young guys that come in, you know, and they cut your wheel up and they think to themselves, it's not going to matter. Some guy, some old bloke, you know, who cares about that guy? It's like, mate, it's a small peloton here. And if you want to be around for a few years, 5, 10 years, you're going to be running into the same guys year after year. And you've got to remember that when you start burning bridges, you might be a teammate with that guy next year, or you might need to get him to hold the wheel in the crosswind or get you back on. You might be out the back with him next week, just you and him for 100K. So there's those little things that you understand, and it goes a long way, especially as a GC man, creating that bond and creating that team, that atmosphere around you.
So Iffy and Scooter are going to put together like a list at some point. You know, if you had all the Aussie pros at the moment, what that would look like, you know, in terms of a squad for GC, a squad for, you know, the Tour de France or whatever. Is this era that we're in now? We always talk about, you know, the Robbie McEwen, Stewie, Brad McGee, that era. Is this era now, do you think, stronger in terms of you look at what Aussies are doing on the World Tour?
Oh, yeah. Phil, what do you think? You probably got a better outside perspective of that.
Passing the book, that well done. You're learning for the future. Gee, that's a good question. We all have lived through the great icons of Robbie McEwen's and O'Grady, etc., and Matt Hayman. There's a new breed now, as there is in the whole sport. There's a new breed coming through, and they're performing now. Stora is a man for the future, and you know, King of the Mountains in the Vuelta is the way to go. I think he started in the Bay Classic Series, actually, but I might be wrong. It could have been in the Sun Tour, but even so, this kid's really come good this year. No, we're in a new wave. I don't think we should ever compare the old with the new, because it's a new scene. And I think the racing this year has been absolutely fabulous. Great racing. The robots don't seem to be there. Ineos, they've had a very, very good season, despite the fact they appear to have let us down occasionally. Ineos has had a wonderful season right up to the Giro. They won the Tour of Switzerland, don't forget. But it's gone a bit wrong with them. Too many chiefs, who knows? But the thing is, the other teams have stepped up, and little teams have been successful and got a lot out. There was 11 teams won stages in this year's Vuelta, by the way, and I think that's a pretty high total because it's normally shut down. There was 9 different nations crossed the line first and stuff like that. I think the sport's in a good place just now, and the future's looking very bright, even though there are always problems. I think right now we can look back on a super season that's conquered COVID. And this is not the time to retire, Mitch.
I disagree, because the peloton is just going like this, and you know, I was slowly catching up, but you guys have noticed like the racing. I'm sure you can see it from the television. It's just so exciting, and people are doing crazy things, and I think it's got to do with the leaders of the pack. You know, the Van der Poel, the Van Aert, Pidcock. These guys are pushing the envelope, and everyone's like, well, we just have to be like that now. There is no tomorrow. And I think if you're used to what it used to be like, it's difficult. But if you're just coming in and that's the world you're just presented with, you just rise to the occasion. And guys around my age are really finding it tough. I think because you've been in the peloton for 10 or more years and you knew what it used to be like, and you've seen a small adaptation. And now this lift after COVID is sort of like the icing on the cake. You're doing everything you can, and you're just another number. It can be very difficult to adapt. So in answer to your question, I'm in these races thinking, you know what, this is amazing. I was actually able to laugh a little bit in the Benelux tour, because there were some moments there that were just literally ridiculous. Crosswind, you know, it wasn't raining, it was crosswinds, and it was really fast. And I was just like, normally I would just be like grimacing, hating this, but I was able to laugh about it, have a smile to myself and go, wow, this is probably the last time I'm going to be riding at this speed with these professional riders, you know, at the top level. I could sort of weirdly enjoy the hard moments, the shit moments, because it was like
suffering.
This is something. It's something that's going to be able to only be viewed, and it's only going to go up from here, I think.
I got a funny message from Bewley, who's over in the UK, and he said, the other day in the race, this young British dude that rides for Trek come up to me and he said he listens to the podcast and that the backstage pass was one of the things that got him inspired to be a pro cyclist. He said watching them made him think pro cycling was so fun. Then he turned pro and was like, what the hell is this shit? Mitch, if you look back at your journey, obviously Paris-Roubaix is a really special race for you, but what is the race or the moment that really sort of stands out?
It's funny you say that, and maybe it's just because you brought that up now or just because I've been watching it lately, but I think I really underestimated what we did in my very first Grand Tour, the Vuelta a España. We did the music clip, Call Me Maybe. Yeah. And, everyone knows that. And I knew it. I was like, oh, yeah, I know that. And I went back and watched it. My kids heard the song on the radio. And I said, you know what, Dad did a film clip for this. We'll watch it when we get home. And it was playing for like 2 days straight. And I regretted that. But it was really interesting to watch because I was like, wow, we did a Grand Tour. We had time to do this video. We made time to do it. And it was a really key element of it. Many times I've suffered through Grand Tours because I didn't have a distraction. I didn't have something to sort of stop thinking about the suffering or the next stage or the mountains coming, whatever. But this was an amazing thing. And I think back to that text message you just read. We did do some crazy things. And, okay, I know it has sort of progressed and gone a bit faster, the peloton, but, we're not talking about much difference. We were still able to do that stuff. And it was a really special team that we could achieve things that a lot of people underestimated and have tried to recreate, but it's not that easy to recreate because it was just a great group of guys that, like we said, we could just do it.
What people don't realize is that you and Alan Davis were the key to getting Call Me Maybe up because Neil Stevens said, we should do that clip. And I'm thinking, if you don't get buy-in from the riders, they're not going to do it. So you and Albie went down the beach and we did a couple of scenes and it was embarrassing. And then we just kept laying it over the top. And then you had the Ween Dog and Julian Dean go, I don't care what you try and say. I'm not being part of that shit. And so we got him involved with the signs and that. But the fallout of that, I left and I missed all the crowds doing the Call Me Maybe sign and everything on the side of the road. That's the part that I regret not being able to see it because I heard that it just went ballistic for the last week.
It was just amazing.
John, yeah. The big question for you now. Do you remember where Mitch's last race win was?
No, I don't.
You're normally good with stats, John.
Oh, yeah.
It was in Williamstown in the Bay Classics, and you don't remember.
Oh, really? Well, I thought you might have been alluding to that. I was just
Very good, Phil. I wasn't sure if you remember that.
Wow, it's a while ago, Mitch. I didn't want to say the year, but I tell you what, you've had a great career, mate. And you can't leave the sport. You're too valuable. You're too valuable to Aussie cycling, honestly.
Well, I can tell you now, you're already a star in the podcast world, but your impact on the sport will be, the next.
I'm glad you said that,
years in media, because you've got that. You had that even before you did the podcast. That creative sort of spark, and it's in your family. Your brother's in TV as well. Your dad's obviously a creative type. He loves telling a good yarn, but you've got that, and you can't teach that, and therefore it's going to be a sustainable, future in the sport because. You only got to look at the comments as well. People love it.
Well, yeah. I'll tell you what, Mitch, I must say this because I always talk about it, but the podcast you did with me in Victoria in the hotel in the bedroom that day, you've been asking me for weeks, hey, we've got to have a talk. And I said, yeah, right. We finally got together. That is the most talked about podcast that I refer to. It really is. You put the question so well, I thought you might go to tell me in a few minutes' time you were going to be a journalist because you got things out of me I've never said in any other podcast, and I've been in dozens of podcasts. And
thanks, Phil. It was
a very, very good one.
Yeah. It was an honor to just be able to sit down and talk to you because in those times, as I grew up as a young bloke watching the Tour de France, as I called that podcast, the voice of cycling, you were the voice. And I always remember when I first did the Tour Down Under, my brother and I were there, and I think we just heard you walk past us in the village, and I was there. I was able to go in the village, and you and Paul were there just chatting, and to hear your voice not commentating was just such an amazing thing. I was like, oh my God, it's Phil. You could hear your voice talking normally. You're like, you weren't talking about the cycling, and it sounded exactly the same. So it was as much as you enjoyed it, I enjoyed it even more just sitting there talking to you. So thanks for doing that. Everyone should check it out. I'm going to plug my own podcast here.
Yeah, for sure.
Life in the Peloton. Go across and have a listen to Phil's episode, which we did probably 2 years ago now, or 3 years ago.
I think that it seems like I remember the hotel, wasn't it? The hotel when we were waiting for the start of probably the Sun Tour, I think.
I think so, yeah.
Oh, it was in a hotel in Victoria. That one in Park Street, is it, John? Park Lane, whatever. Opposite the hospital.
But I was there.
Yeah.
That's right. Tricia reminded me she was there, but she certainly wasn't. She wasn't there for the Sun Tour, so it must have been bridging at the time.
I think it was.
Yeah. Anyway, it was a great. Really, it stuck in my mind, and I've often referred to it when I've talked to people. Yeah.
Great.
Well, Mitch, we've bloody appreciated being on the detour, mate. We're really looking forward to the next chapter. It's going to be.
Where are you now, by the way?
One.
I'm in Spain. I'm in Girona. And Dan caught me this morning. I was doing my early morning ergo, and I walked the kids to school and got back. The best thing about doing these ergos is you get up in the morning. I'm an early riser with the kids, and you get your work done in an hour and a half early morning. 8:30 in the morning, I'm done. Work done. Whole day ahead of me. You know, it's actually quite a beautiful thing. So I've got the whole day ahead of me. I've ticked off this podcast, this big burden now, and now I'm free.
problem with the elbow is wall ball, mate. I've still
got my right hand, my good hand.
Okay.
That's all that matters. Right. And are the kids speaking Spanish, I suppose, are they?
Well, my son's 4 and my daughter's 2, and they do speak a few words, actually, yes.
Yeah.
They speak more than me, which says how good my Spanish is.
Yeah. But,
I think Kim Dixon sums up. Big fan of Life in the Peloton. Best wishes, Mitch. Mate, we really do wish you all the best, and we'll no doubt check in again soon and look forward to catching up for a beer when we get our double vax freedoms, Mitch, at the end of the year in Melbourne.
Everyone get double vaxxed because I want to do home quarantine. So do it. Do it for me.
Yeah, that's right.
I'm done.
I've got one to go. Yeah.
One to go.
Good on you, Mitch. We'll speak to you soon, mate. Appreciate it.
Thanks.
See you, mate.
All the very best, Mitch.
Take it easy.
See you, bud. Bye, mate.
Mitch Docker. Look, we're going to have a drinks break. Then when we come back, we're going to talk to Lindy Sutherland. She's the director of the Correca Foundation because you're going to announce, obviously we did yesterday on the show, the winning bid, but we'll get a bit of an insight into what effect that will have on the foundation. So quick drinks break. We'll be back after these words from Bike Exchange and the Amy Gillett Foundation.
Look at this bike. You think it's just a bike, right? But it's not. It's a bike. 374 people are looking at. This guy, this girl, them, all looking at it. People from here, there, and wherever this is. People that are looking for a bike. Or just a piece of it. Amateurs, semi-amateurs, and pro-amateurs. This guy wants this bike, but with this crank and these bars. This could be the perfect match. But not this one. This girl has a bike to sell, and thousands of people might purchase it. Eyes on Bikes help grow small businesses. His, hers, yours, and the latest data and insights help those businesses keep moving. We are the world's #1 bike marketplace, with over 500,000 products and 900 brands, where buyers and sellers are brought together in a place where a bike is never just a bike. Bike Exchange, where the world buys, sells, learns, and rides.
Life is like a two-way street. It's about consideration and mutual respect. Roads are much the same. However you get around, walk, ride or drive, if we share our roads, we can all be safer. The Amy Gillett Foundation is Australia's peak cycling safety charity. Our mission is for safe cycling in Australia. Our vision is for 0 cyclist deaths. Over the last year, we've seen an enormous increase in people taking up cycling, whether it be for recreation, with the family, commuting, or even to start your own cycling career. We need to do more to make it safer for every cyclist. 20 cyclists every day are hospitalised, and 1 cyclist is killed every 10 days on Australian roads. So, the next time you jump on your bike or hop in your car, remember to practice the 4 C's. Be courteous, calm, considerate, and conscientious. Every cyclist death is preventable, and we all deserve to get home safely. Please donate to help the Amy Gillett Foundation make the roads safer for you and for me.
Thanks again to Bike Exchange and the Amy Gillett Foundation. Now we're joined by Lindy Sutherland, Director of the Kareka Foundation. Lindy, thanks for joining the detour again.
Hello, guys. Jeepers, it's so wonderful to see your faces. I'm very excited to be with you again.
Now, if he had the
Lindy.
idea to do the silent auction, thanks to our great mates at the Miller Resorts, and what was the final bid worth again?
Yeah, $7,500. And I got unless he gives us permission, we're not going to say his name, but I got a wonderful email just before. It says, "Hi guys, absolutely stoked to come away with this, and my partner is over the moon. We'll be able to have our epic honeymoon once we can finally get married next year. We couldn't be happier, helping a great cause as well." So that's from Neil. I won't say his surname because he didn't give me permission to. But yeah, so it was wonderful, $7,500. So that's great.
We are, you know, I call Phil Father Christmas because every time I get an email or contact from Phil, there's some extraordinary good news in it. And today was one of those days. It's, you know, the generosity of people and how people have really stood up to help us. And so many of them have been through Phil's network and Trisha's network is very humbling. And again, it's sometimes I find it hard to find the words to really let you know how grateful we are and how much these gestures make a difference, a huge and tangible difference to us on the ground and our survival and operations during this time.
I was going to ask you, Lindy, this sort of $7,500. What can that do for you? How does that work for the reserve?
John, for the Kareka Foundation, directly $7,500 translates into over 100,000 rand, and that keeps my anti-poaching unit active for another 2 months. It basically brings in the funds to keep us operational for another 2 months. So, you know, in normal world terms, ecotourism funds conservation, and 18 months ago, the ecotourism tap was turned off, and so we've had to look for very creative ways to maintain our conservation practices on the reserve. And working with Phil and Trish has been not only creative, but hugely enjoyable and introduced me to the most incredible people. So another 2 months is huge for us because, you know, every single month takes us a little bit closer to starting to get business back. Last week was the first time in 18 months that we suddenly had a couple of bookings come into the system from America, from Germany, from different places. And it's still going to take a while. South Africa has to get off the red list, but as vaccinations increase and as people's confidence in travel grows, so we will start getting guests back to the reserve, and that immediately equates into financial support for anti-poaching, for conservation, for community projects. So it's such a wonderful, sustainable model when it's working, but we need ecotourism back to get to that point. And these donations keep us afloat while we're working towards that. So, you know, it alleviates so much stress. It's hard to explain to you when a big donation like this comes in. It's just like a huge sigh of relief because it's like the duck can just slow down, you know, under the water when you're paddling. We can just glide for a moment before we have to think, okay, what next to stay alive? So I'm just so grateful. Thank you.
Yeah. And obviously, yeah, it must melt your heart when, you know, people like Jason from Miller Resorts gets involved and is just so generous with such a big prize to have the silent auction with.
Dan, melts my heart. It melts my heart. It expands my heart. That's the yin and the yang of COVID. You know, where there's a loss, you get this incredible opportunity to experience generosity, to experience people's care, compassion, empathy. And it really balances out the two emotions. It's been quite extraordinary. Thank you, Jason. I've never actually officially met him, and I hope that I get to meet him one day so I can give him a very, very big hug so long as social distancing allows it.
Oh, he's a ripper. He's an absolute ripper. I first met Jason. I was at a Kentucky resort in Bali in 2006, and he was the manager. And this was like when tourism was really slow there. And we hit it off because he's such a big fan of cycling, but such a passionate guy. Like you meet certain people in your life that when they say they're passionate about something and they want to do it, they just act. Like they don't think, they just go bang, that's it. And Phil, you're the same. You know, you're someone that if you're passionate about something, you go bang.
Absolutely right. In all honesty, first of all, I've never taken a contract with anybody if they don't like animals, because it tells me a little bit about their character. And I've never been proved wrong. And that's the way I operate. So if somebody says to me, I hate dogs, I thought, right, well, remind me not to work for you, because if you're going to ill-treat dogs, you'll certainly ill-treat me in business. And it's never let me down. And through my cycling world, I've made so many friends, of course. And now through I always call people in cycling my other life, which is working with animals and conservation around Africa and indeed Australia. I've just met so many nice people as well. And that's how we met Lindy. It was a coincidence we came together. And I'm so happy to see it working out for you, Lindy. I really am. As you know, Trish puts literally every hour of a day into thinking of ideas and doing things to help African animals. And just when I'm about to relax and do something different, she comes up with a new idea, and I go, oh, no, not again. There's no time we ever stop. However, you can probably see those lovely elephants and the Cape buffalo behind me. Well, they were taken outside of our house. And I'm going to tell you, Lindy, that since COVID hit Grichy, which is where we live in the bush, a couple of days ago, we had a line literally walk down the drive past the front door of the house. So next time I go and sit on the deck, I might be more careful. But now in this last few days, we have had a succession of wild dog, and the pack has split, and they've met another pack, and so they've started to intermate between the two packs. We have never had so many wild dog ever, and they're all over the place. And that wild dog are extremely rare, and you have to report the locations whenever you see them. So we're very happy. Life is going on, and I've found a lot of friends too in COVID, as well as the tragedy of the situation. It's brought a lot of good people together, and I think this is a prime example. I'm looking forward to doing my African safari now, especially I've never seen John sweat before, so I'd like to see him get on the train.
I just do hope that I get the chance to meet you all in person. I know I'm going to meet Phil and Trish next year. I actually bit my mind that I've never met them in person, because it feels like they're family to me already. You know, I also talk to Trish on a daily basis, and also
I bet you don't speak
John and Jason and everyone who's been part of the peloton has become such a family. I love the thought of over the next couple of years getting emails from people saying, "Oh, we're finally coming to South Africa. We're going to come to the reserve. Can we see you? What can we do?" And it's going to be wonderful to work our way back to a place where we're able to give back and be generous ourselves. You know, when you've been on the receiving end, it's lovely when that pendulum swings, and I hope it does get us to that point.
Well, I was going to say I look forward to getting. I haven't been to South Africa, and it's funny what the one thing COVID has done for me. I'm used to traveling a lot and going to Tour de France each year and whatever, but now you realise that you haven't been able to do it for 2 years. I am just itching to go. And so I've been promising to come to stay with Phil and Trish at their bush place. And I'm going to get there. So as soon as it's allowed, and when I do, I'll make sure that I get over to Korea.
Why don't you do a story for the Geelong Addy and just write it off on tax?
Definitely.
Done deal. Done deal.
Well,
are you allowed to say that on air, Dan?
We have all our meetings live. There's no filter. The work continues. Get behind Phil's Peloton, as we always say, koreka.co.za/Peloton, and continue the journey, because even if you haven't been part of the bid or whatever, you can still donate, and any money that goes through does make a difference, as you've explained, and you will keep in the loop, because once you sign up, Phil, you're part of the Peloton family. And you get to be part of the rides that are coming up. And, well, that's a good cue to play the ad, Iffy.
I reckon.
Phil's Peloton. Let's have a look.
Yep.
Hi everyone, it's Phil Liggett here, and it's time to get my African safari on the road again. We're heading back to the Kareka Game Reserve in the Eastern Cape of South Africa, where animals, including the rhino, roam freely. We did 4 great rides in June, and now, with 2 new ones, we're set to go again. There will be eminent guests to answer your questions on the wildlife and also offer an opportunity to win amazing trips to Kareka. We'll chat to one another, and you don't even have to ride, thanks to Fulgaz, who will set you up to watch on Zoom when you enroll and make a donation. We have 4 rides, 1 per month, starting on September 19. They last an hour, and if you have a smart trainer, you can pedal your way through the reserve, or you can just sit back with a cup of tea. In either case, knowing that your participation is helping keep the animals safe and free to roam. Come and join me, and all the information you need to have is at kareka.co.za/peloton, and let's go.
Let's go. Get involved.
Let's go. I bet your heart went out to those roads then, Lindy, didn't they?
Yeah, absolutely. So the guest for the September and October ride is Dr. William Folds, who's a really wonderful person to will just be in his company, but obviously hugely knowledgeable and been very, very actively involved in rhino conservation and saving many of the survivors, including Tundi, from a veterinary perspective for the last decade or even more. I'd say probably, decade and a half. So he's going to be a really fantastic guy to connect with in the next 2 rides. So it's definitely worth signing on. I also just want to say the one thing that has been such a blessing during this time for us is just the ability to be able to get out onto the reserve and into nature. You can be having a really bad day and you've got to go to a meeting or something's got to happen at the reserve. I don't actually live there, but I live close. And the minute you drive on and the minute you're in that environment, you just get brought back to equilibrium again. You get you get your energy restored. You feel rejuvenated. You feel like you can keep going for a bit longer. And that's the blessing in working in conservation and working with animals and working in nature, and that it is so restorative and rejuvenating. And the world's been a very difficult place to live for all of us. And wherever you are, if you can find nature around you, step out into it. You can find animals to gaze upon and just remind you of the wonder and intricacy and awe of the natural cycle of things. I think it helps us manage our own anxiety in this period that's had so much stress and uncertainty.
For sure. It's great advice because fresh air and animals fixes a lot, for sure. Hey, Lindy, we really want to thank you for being on the show, but also congratulate you on all the fantastic work you've been doing for the foundation. If you want to add anything before we let Lindy go?
No, just the same thoughts. Thanks heaps. We've enjoyed being a part of this as much as you've enjoyed having us on board. So, and because Phil is such a great mate, we just love to do anything we can to help. Sensational.
And thanks to the viewers. Thanks to the viewers because they've got behind it, and particularly the winning bid. That as you said, that money's going to go a long way. So we look forward to the next concept, and Patricia, she'll come up with something, Phil, as well.
We'll get a call this afternoon.
Oh no! See, I didn't even know about that. There we go. No. I'm not sure I'm doing you a favour, Lindy, if I ever manage to get John to Kareka, but I know that lock up the beer, lock up the wine, and I'll take him outside and feed him to the lions. He'll love everything.
Never. John and Dan, thank you both so much. Honestly, putting your weight behind the peloton and supporting Kareka in the way that you have, I'm deeply, deeply grateful. Thank you. I really do hope that I get to meet you one day.
For sure.
Thanks, Lindy.
No worries, Lindy. Thanks for being on the show. Take it easy.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Lindy Sutherland, as we said, doing fantastic work for the foundation. Now, Phil, we have got breaking news for people in Australia. If you want to watch The Voice of Cycling, you can stream it tomorrow. Vimeo.com/on-demand/Phil Liggett. We've talked about The Voice of Cycling doco for a while now, so I think it's a good time to show the trailer, because if you haven't seen the trailer, this is what you're going to be missing out on. So there's no excuses now.
This is going to be a very strange season for me this year, isn't it? I'm going to go to the commentary box without Paul for the first time since 1986. The fans are going to be looking at it very critically. Oh, he's not the same now that Paul's left his side. It won't be the same.
Well, alongside me now is Paul Sherwin, and he'll be joining me for the full 3 weeks as my co-commentator for the first time.
You may not recognize his face, but if you've ever watched the Tour de France, you know his distinctive and famous voice.
On the right, here comes Hondo.
He's a walking, talking part of broadcast history.
Well, you're known as the voice of the Tour de France.
The voice of cycling.
The legend, Phil Liggett.
Is there any stopping Lance Armstrong in this Tour de France? And the answer is no, there is not.
Phil's never really had a chance to tell his side of that story.
Well, Paul is already a British champion. He's 3 days old. Congratulations, Paul.
And so it was the end of a dream.
I really, really feel for Phil Liggett right now.
How much longer will Phil Liggett continue? He's 75.
I don't think Phil will ever be Phil without Paul.
He can see the banner now. The moment is going to turn to a smile. He cannot believe it. He promised the Italians he'd do it. We're looking at the Battle of Val Thorens here. It has never been like this before on the Tour de France. We didn't come here to believe that's what we were going to do, save rhinos. We came here because we wanted to live here where rhinos lived. But we've been drawn in now.
Cycling has always been Phil's life. It's an impossible thing to intrude into.
I was still training. Trish drove the car every day from one hotel to the other, and I rode the bike to the Welsh Mountains. And I was too tired to do anything else at night, so we got on very well.
Thank you.
Lovely.
Good night to meet you.
We love him.
So melodious.
A global legend for cycling.
Just the dulcet tones, the sound of familiarity. It's worth just watching every bike race just for Phil.
Phil will have a different show now without Paul.
The tour goes on.
Oh, fantastic. It is a cracking film. And now that people, particularly in Australia, can see it, I'm sure you're going to be flooded your inbox again with all positive comments because, as we said, it's a great job. And Nick Bird and the team have done great effort there, Effie.
Yeah, sensational. I got to tell you, just watching that clip brings back all the great memories because Paul Sherwin was also a great mate of mine. Lived not far from him in Belgium for a while when he was just a very young pro and used to go to the races with him sometimes. And just an absolute amazing young man with, like Phil, a photographic memory. I can remember talking to Paul just a few years back, and he remembered things of going to a small race with me and remembered everything about it. How can you remember that? You must have found that with him, with Phil. You must have found, Paul's memory was amazing.
Yeah, he was. I have to say that obviously I miss Paul very much. I think about him every day, quite honestly. We were together 33 years. The film itself brings that out because it kind of happened as we started the filming, so we had to rewrite the script in many ways. And of course, the camera crew didn't know about my other life, which is Trish and I living in South Africa 6 months a year and working with rhinos and getting involved in quite dangerous situations because the poachers are heavily armed. And so they rewrote the script, and what has come out of it, it is the voice of cycling. That was the working title, and the guy said, let's just leave it at that, which I appreciate. But it's not just about me. It's about Trish. It's about our life in the wild. It's about all the friends I've made on both sides of the business. And well worth seeing. What you're telling me is absolute news, Dan. I didn't know anything about this, but do try and watch it if you've got the chance. It's the wives will not be bored with cycling. I can tell you that right.
And also, most of us are in lockdown. What excuses you got? What else do you do?
Well,
what a great time to release it.
There it is again. Vimeo.com/on-demand/Phil Liggett. But I got to say, I've watched the movie and it is
it's one of the best docos I've seen.
Yeah. Sensational, very moving. There's definitely, if you've got a dry eye right through that, there's something wrong with you. So it's pretty special.
And there's one of the stars, the star.
And Trish is a star in it.
Oh, yeah.
It's absolutely fantastic.
That's right.
She's
That's right.
itching to leave to catch a train. Just 1 second.
Oh, okay.
Next on the video now. Yeah.
Right. Okay, thanks, guys.
See you, Trish.
Bye, Trish.
Thank you so much for what you've done, both of you.
No worries at all. It was the viewers and the fantastic cause, and it was Iffy's idea, as we said yesterday, do the silent auction. I thought that was brilliant because that's what got maximum return for that amazing prize. So great stuff. Hey, we're coming to the end of the show, fellas. Obviously, we've had a big Vuelta, but we're going to line up some big guests because I've been on the phones. I've got Magnus Cord. He's going to jump on the show at the end of the week. We've got Neil, the Sheriff Stevens. We can recap with him. Jack Haig, we'll talk to him later in the week. So we're going to have some huge episodes coming out. And we've got still some big races to come. Obviously, Mitch was talking about Paris-Roubaix still to come. You got the Worlds. Still plenty of detour to come, Iffy.
Exactly. So it won't be every night for the next few weeks, guys. So you'll have to find something else to do.
Great.
But I've had some amazing texts and emails from fans just saying how they look forward to get the end of the day, 6:30, and watching the details. So, but Thursday we'll be back on Thursday, which we're going to talk about the ultimate Australian team. But we're going to have some great guests over. So we're going to be regularly on a Thursday, 6:30. But every now and again we'll be whacking an extra one in for special events.
That's why you have to subscribe on YouTube, because if you tick notifications, it'll pop up on your phone. You could be sitting on the couch, you go, Detours Live, because it'll tell you.
Absolutely.
No-brainer. YouTube.com/the Detour Podcast. Get behind it. But, hey, Phil, thanks so much as well for being a part of the Detour from
I'm going to miss it.
Tour de France and the Vuelta and all the work you're doing with the foundation and just being a bloody legend, mate. We really appreciate it.
No, I appreciate it too. It's a sort of a departure for me. People used to stop me in the street after the tour finished every year and say, "Hey, what do we do today? The tour's finished." And I feel that way this morning. The Vuelta's finished and we had a good time. And we met some interesting people too. And that's the most important part, I think. So I hope everybody's enjoyed it. And yeah, we'll do it again one day.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. We'll see you on Thursday, 6:30.
Thanks, Phil. Thanks,
all the best.
Phil. Good on you. Cheers, guys.